Have you ever gotten a raise and felt, for a moment, like you'd finally made it, only to check your bank account a week later and wonder where the money went? That strange disappointment isn't accidental. It's the predictable result of one quiet habit most people adopt the instant their paycheck grows. Today, I'll tell you a story about that habit, the small math that ruins big opportunities, and the mindset shift that actually builds lasting wealth. No hype, no tricks, just clear thinking. Meet Sophie, 31, living in a European capital. She's been working for 5 years and just got a promotion. Gross salary increases from €45,000 to €55,000. After taxes and contributions, her monthly take-home jumps from about €2,300 to €2,800, roughly €500 more each month. Real money. She feels relief and pride. She deserves it. 2 weeks later, Sophie starts looking for an apartment with better light and a slightly safer neighborhood. Her old rent was €700 per month. The nicer place is €900. She sells her aging hatchback privately and leases a newer compact SUV with a $320 monthly payment because insurance and maintenance on the old car started to look risky. She also gives herself permission for a little upgrade in lifestyle. Nicer lunches, an extra subscription, slightly more weekend travel, €130 more. And she uses her credit card on things she used to save up for, adding around €50 a month in average interest and fees because she doesn't clear the full balance every month. Add that up, €200 for rent, €320 for car, €130 lifestyle, €50 interest equals €700 increase. Her raise was €500. So after getting paid more, Sophie is actually worse off by €200 each month than she was before the raise. That shortfall gets covered in obvious ways, dipping into savings, delaying investment, or paying the credit card later with interest. Now imagine James in the US, 28, who gets an annual bonus and a salary bump that increases his take-home by $600 a month. He moves to a slightly better apartment, $300 more. He finances a new car, $350 a month. He thinks he'll make up the difference by cutting back later, but months pass and the higher payments are baked in. Like Sophie, he ends up financing the gap on his credit card some months. Small monthly mismatches become persistent shortfalls. Let's make the cost painfully concrete. That €200 Sophie loses each month is €2,400 per year. If she instead invested that €200 monthly into a diversified index fund at a conservative 6% annual return compounded monthly, after 30 years she'd have approximately €164,000. That's €164,000 she effectively gave up because she reset her lifestyle to match a raise without thinking about opportunity cost. For James, $120 a month may not sound dramatic. Over a year, that's $1,440. Over 30 years, at 6% compounding, that becomes roughly $98,000. The sums become meaningful because compound returns treat consistent monthly contributions like a slow but unstoppable machine. This behavior isn't simply people being careless, it's driven by consistent psychological forces. Reference dependence. When your income increases, your internal baseline for normal shifts upward. You start evaluating losses and gains relative to the new standard. Status signaling. A nicer car, an upgraded apartment, the visible markers of success, they provide social proof and immediate emotional reward. Present bias. Immediate pleasures are overvalued compared to future gains. A nicer dinner now trumps the abstract idea of a bigger retirement balance in 30 years. Friction and default behavior. Increasing savings requires setup, new transfers, new accounts, while upgrading services or taking a lease requires almost no friction, so people default to the easier path. These forces are subtle and persuasive. They're not moral failures, they're baked into our brains and social systems. There's also a structural flaw in how modern jobs and consumer markets interact. Employers regularly present raises as earned validation. Consumer markets present better apartments, cars, subscriptions, and financing terms designed to be immediately available. The timing is perfectly aligned. You get more money just when better, more expensive options are easiest to acquire. Most financial education frames saving as a static percentage of income, but it rarely addresses the behavioral pivot point when income increases. Suppose someone always raises their fixed costs by, say, 2/3 of each new raise. Over a decade, their nominal income may double, but their savings rate could stay flat or decline. The result is modest present consumption growth, but no meaningful accumulation of flexible capital. That reduces optionality, the ability to change jobs, move cities, start a business, or take time off. Emergencies become debt events. Retirement remains a distant, amorphous worry rather than a funded plan. Another consequence, psychological inertia. Once you've raised your baseline, dialing back feels like loss. Loss aversion makes reductions feel worse than incremental gains felt good. That's why many people stay stuck at a higher spending, lower saving equilibrium for years. This isn't about living poorly, it's about changing the mental question you ask when money arrives. Financially intelligent people don't treat a raise like permission to upgrade everything. They use it as leverage. When pay increases, their first question is strategic. How does this change my runway, optionality, and risk profile? They think in percentages and future power, not only present comfort. Practically, they do a few repeatable things, quietly, almost boringly. They automate. The moment income rises, they increase automatic transfers to investments and debt repayment. That removes the friction and the temptation to spend. They delay commitment. They allow lifestyle upgrades a probation period. If after 6 months they still value the upgrade, they consider whether it should become a fixed cost. They treat raises as split between future and present. A portion funds immediate reward, a larger portion compounds for future flexibility. They look at fixed versus variable costs. Fixed costs are permanent, variable costs are reversible. They're conservative about raising fixed obligations. Those habits aren't dramatic, they're simply different defaults. The result is optionality, money to switch careers, to weather shocks, to invest, or to retire earlier if desired. Return to Sophie. Instead of immediately signing for the nicer apartment and the lease, she pauses. She decides to allocate her €500 raise like this. €300 automatically increases her retirement and investment contributions. €100 is for an intentional lifestyle reward she enjoys now. €100 goes into a short-term emergency buffer. She keeps her rent and car for 6 months to test whether she truly values the upgrade enough to make it permanent. 6 months later, she's happier with the job, and the buffer has reduced stress. She still wants nicer light at home, but she's now in a position to trade from savings rather than commit to a higher fixed cost. Over 5 years, that €300 creates a meaningful cushion and long-term growth. She still enjoys life, but with future optionality intact. You might say, but what about the social pressure? My partner expects an upgrade. My peer group lives a certain way. Those are real. Social dynamics shape decisions. The practical response isn't to disassociate from social life, but to frame social choices intentionally. If keeping pace with friends costs you long-term security, you can choose different ways to maintain connection that don't involve permanent high fixed costs. You might also say, what if I need to upgrade for safety, commute, or genuine quality of life reasons? Those are valid exceptions. The point isn't never to upgrade, it's to treat upgrades as deliberate choices, not automatic reactions. Think in terms of optionality and baseline. Ask 2 silent questions when a raise comes in. Does this upgrade cost me future choices? And can I delay making this a fixed obligation? Use a small experiment period before signing long-term commitments. Automate the future first part of the raise so the decision happens without daily willpower. Conclusion: calm, clear, and realistic. A raise should increase your freedom, not quietly reduce it. The easiest way to lose wealth isn't a reckless splurge, it's the slow, invisible resetting of your baseline. Small monthly shortfalls compound into real losses of future options. You don't need extraordinary discipline, you just need a different default. Make the raise work for future you first. Let present you enjoy a small intentional part and delay permanent commitments. No gimmicks, no moralizing, just one clear change. When money rises, let your baseline stay anchored long enough to decide if upgrades truly matter. That small habit builds optionality, reduces stress, and, over years, quietly compounds into real financial freedom. If this shifted how you see your next raise, consider subscribing for more calm, story-driven finance thinking.